As usual, we'll give folks a little bit of time to get on the Zoom call if they're joining us there, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Good evening. I now call this meeting of the South Whitby School Board to order. We will turn first to our land acknowledgement and Director Jackson.
Thank you. We gather today on Indigenous land, tended today and for uncountable generations behind us and for uncountable generations ahead of us by the people of the Snohomish tribe and by the many Coast Salish tribal family members and community members who have called this land and these waters home. The people of the Stillaguamish, Suquamish, Lower Skagit, the people collectively associated with the Tulalip tribes, the people who are fluent in the Lushootseed language families, people whose identities are hard for me to name because the community fabric was so diverse prior to colonization, and the maps that we want to delineate with hard lines didn't apply to a way of living that was traditional in these places now. We have a written land acknowledgement that you're welcome to view on our website, but that is a moment in time, a static capture of words and an intention that we had and have. And I know that we have a tradition of stating our land acknowledgement in a more improvisational way now, and that is because the act of acknowledging can't be captured in a snapshot that gets saved forever. It's really an act of daily work to be in integrity with the place that we call home and in integrity with the people for whom this is and has been and will be an ancestral home. So I want to thank our district for centering this practice in our meetings. I want to thank our community for being with the Indigenous histories, stories, truths of this place. And I want to thank the First Peoples of this land for the enduring care and stewardship without which so much of what we cherish would have been lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jackson. Just to note, this is a business meeting, which means that there will be a public comment period during which members of the public, either present in person or on our Zoom meeting, are welcome to provide comment to the board. In general, there will be no response, but we will be listening and taking what you say into our thought processes as we move on with our business. If you are in person, please talk to Ms. Macaro in the back to get your name on the list to speak if you'd like to speak. If you are a participant on Zoom, please use the Q&A function to list your name and location. First of all, just general location, Clinton, Freeland, Langley, whatever it might be, and then type up what you'd like to say, and I will read it. That's all I have on that. Are there any objections to approving the agenda and minutes as presented? Hearing none, the agenda and minutes are approved as presented. Are there any objections to approving the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved as presented. I'm particularly happy to see that there are 2 overnight field trips for our 4th and 6th graders on that consent agenda, and I know they're very excited about those opportunities. We'll move on to our presentations period, and that will go over to our student representatives for their report.
Okay, so it's springtime now and students are really enjoying that, and I think it's like boosting student moods quite a bit. Spring sports are also kicking off, and it never rains at track practice. Girls tennis, soccer, baseball, softball, and golf have all had amazing first games, meets, and all that stuff. Prom is coming up on April 19th. The theme is April showers bring prom flowers, and juniors and seniors are really looking forward to it.
I think as some of you guys saw today, Model UN had a bake sale to fund for some of the upcoming conferences. Callahan and I actually also, just in this past week or two, attended the ESD 197's student representative retreat. It was really fun. We learned a lot of tactics and skills from other student reps in the area, which was really fun to actually work with groups and students who have the same kind of things as us, being in a smaller size districts and that kind of thing. Me and other student representative network members actually presented at the WASDA in-session live on student board members and how to like empower them, how to give them authentic voice, and how to really get student reps to be engaged in that. And mainly just encouraging school boards that don't have student reps to just take the leap of faith and get student reps.
The high school jazz band went to PLU Jazz Festival, and they also performed at the Snow King League High School Music Festival, and they beat out 4 and 4A schools for first. And then Nerdy Birdies competed in the regional math competition, and they swept first, second, and fourth place. And all 3 teams have qualified for state at Central Washington in May.
Oh, okay. And now I wanted to talk about Tolo. Tolo is basically an event. It's a dance that the freshman class puts on every year. And this year, the freshman class, which has been really devoted to it, it's a large group, and they've been really working for it for for the past couple months. And this event was pretty much canceled by adult school leaders in our district. They've been kind of working on this event for a long time, and it was event canceled over essentially a paperwork issue. They planned out their music situation, they planned out their decorations and bought supplies. They had figured out a whole bunch of things, the decorating schemes. They'd even come to ASB and presented to the executive class and taken out loans to fund the dance and all these things. And then the week of the dance, it was canceled. Families had already bought, costumes. It was gonna be Wild West theme, a Wild West theme dance. So everyone had already bought stuff for it. This is one of the few dances of the year where you don't actually have to go out and buy a whole bunch of expensive stuff, but you can really get involved. But students, people had already gone out and prepared for it. And the freshmen who had been planning this event are kind of now disillusioned with it because it's like we just planned this entire event and it got canceled over what we don't really see as issues here. And yeah, it's like so much work went into that. Like I think it's over like 3 or 4 months. And this is our most passionate students at our school who want to be involved, who want to do good things for our school. And now why do they even want to be involved if it's just going to be canceled? And this has happened a couple times with events over the past few years I've been on this board where ASB events are kind of just canceled. And I've noticed in my time here too, an overall like lessening of student trust in ASB events happening. Because when they're canceled all the time, especially when you have to go out and buy things for it, like costumes, which students love to do, and they're willing to do it. But then when it gets canceled and now they have nothing to do with their outfit, it's like, why should I even prepare and be school spirited at all if that's what's going to be happening? And that's what we want to highlight. This is like our most passionate leaders who are preparing and doing the work, and they just feel like, yeah. Okay, and moving on to the middle school report. The 8th grade U.S. history students went to Hamilton at the Paramount in Seattle. And this is from a South Dewey Schools Foundation grant. They spent the weeks prior learning the history, so it would make sense to play. This week is also Spirit Week. Monday was PJ Day. Yesterday was Vacation Day. Today was Anything But a Backpack Day. And tomorrow is Jersey Day. And Friday is going to be Blue and White Day. The middle school band performed at Edmonds Performing Center at the League Festival also.
Okay, at the elementary school, the Reptile Man led a student assembly from 2 to 6:30 p.m. for families, and over 300 people attended. The playground groundbreaking and STEAM night are on April 17th, and it will be from 5, it will start at 5, and there's going to be a new wooden toy installed this summer. And a student representative from each grade level will say thank you to the community for passing the bond that is funding the playground. There's also the STEAM night at 5:30 on April 17th. The Daffodil fundraiser is the fundraiser that elementary ASB students chose Habitat Humanity for the recipient of the funds they raise in their fundraiser. And then the Pacific Science Center visited the elementary school with the Science on Wheels program this week. The Southwood BPTA sponsored the Blood and Guts van, and they engaged in a variety of activities, starting with a kickoff assembly on Monday, followed by 2 days of classroom lessons and visits to the hands-on exhibits. The salmon are being released by the 3rd graders this Friday, I think, which is really exciting because I know I remember doing that, and I thought it was a wonderful experience. The 4th and 5th grade Portland Taiko performance is on March 28th, where 4th and 5th graders will be attending a no-cost performance at Wicca. And then 4th grade students will be attending Camp Casey at an overnight outdoor learning field trip April 24th and 25th through an OSPI outdoor learning grant.
Thank you very much. As you go through talking with all of these other student representatives, I said this to you privately, but I want to say it on the record also. Anything you hear that sounds like something we can help to refine your role or push it forward, please let us know, because we want those roles to keep evolving as we go.
I just wonder if I can briefly reflect on what you shared, Carter, about Tolo. And that is that I would wonder whether those students got the guidance that we would give to a concerned parent or a concerned community member to go up the chain of command and speak first to the person closest to the decision, which I would guess would be an ASB advisor, followed by maybe a building principal, followed then, if it couldn't be resolved at that level, with a discussion with the superintendent, and then eventually perhaps elevated to the level of board attention. But I just hope that students can have access to that chain of decision making the same way that we advise community members to go up that ladder so that they can get the answers they need at the place closest to the decision.
I would say the event was canceled like the week of #1, and the students actually didn't know it was canceled up until like a day or two before. That's when they officially met and were like, yeah, it was canceled. So there really wasn't even like time to move through a chain of command to even like fix that.
Well, I would suggest that I didn't know. So that's a concern that it's here at this meeting, which is fine. It's always your prerogative to share, but without me knowing, without the principal knowing until today that there was a concern that he brought to my attention. And certainly Mr. Patton can follow up with this, but my understanding, having followed up on it, is that ASB events are approved through adults, and you can apply to do anything, but it doesn't mean everything is going to go through if it's not the way it needs to be. Now, if something occurred that shouldn't have, it's really up to ASB leadership in terms of the folks that are the advisors. So I can follow up and find out what happened and get more information, but at this point I don't have anything other than very little information because I understood there was a concern coming here tonight. So I would be happy to follow up and get a written report to the board and our student representatives, and if necessary, can bring it back to the board next month as to what the actual events are from all sides. Because I certainly understand Carter's presentation of the student perspective.
Thank you.
And just for the record, I did not just bring up this issue today. I have been talking to Patton at many meetings before this too.
Mr. Patton.
Well, I agree with Director Jackson that this is not yet a board matter. And so if I may, it sounds like an opportunity to use restorative practices, because I hear from you that it sounds like you're relaying that students feel hurt or harmed in some way. And regardless of what the cause is or who's to blame, so to speak, that harm sounds legitimate. And so that sounds like an opportunity for restorative circles.
Thank you for bringing the report. We'll move on to public comments. Folks here in the room, Ms. Macaro. And
Second,
yep,
Charlene.
we're going to get the timer going and make sure that's turned on, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Charlene Davenport, Clinton. I have 3 items for comment this evening. Item number 1. Before you is a picture of a senior who graduated last year. What happened to her would never happen in this district. She is LGBTQ+ and was completely erased from the senior yearbook because she wore a tuxedo for her senior picture. There was no picture and nothing about her academic honors, sports activities, or even her printed name in the yearbook. She could have been a mental health statistic, and if you haven't read Boy Erased, I encourage you to do so. The 2024 U.S. National Survey on Mental Health of LGBTQ+ young people states that when adults in middle school and high school are affirming of teen identity, 13 to 18-year-old teens feel safe at school. When the adults in the community around the school district also affirm teen identity, the suicide rate drops more than 50%. So I want to thank our directors for your rejection vote of the proposed amendment number 7 to the WIAA state code last month. You provided medical, biological, and legal statistics in your discussion, which was appreciated by our community. I have received additional information from the athletic director of Santa Monica High School that I believe should be included in the public record. In December 2024, there was a U.S. Senate hearing regarding transgender athletes. The president of the NCAA Association overseeing sports across the country was asked, how many transgender athletes are currently competing? The answer was less than 10 out of 510,000 athletes. This works out to 0.0000196,078 100,000ths of 1%. Item number 2, I want to thank the directors for their dedication, expertise, and service to our school district. You were reelected to your positions by 70% of voters. That constitutes a mandate of support for your leadership. We trust you for the day-to-day decisions and trust your judgment regarding the tough decisions, like hiring a new superintendent. Thank you for including the community input in this very complex process. A special thank you goes to our student directors for their critical participation. We support your final selection and welcome Dr. Becky Clifford to the district and look forward to her leadership in the future. In addition, thank you for your discussions regarding agenda items at workshops and business meetings. Each of you has unique experiences, knowledge, and perspectives regarding issues for the district to consider prior to a vote. It is important to look at all facets of a discussion item to ensure that policies, procedures, and state laws are followed for committees, resolutions, and the final vote affecting the district. Item number 3, regarding safety of students. I would like to encourage principals, teachers, administrators, anyone working at a school building during the school day to continue to ask students to be extremely careful when they get out of school and have them use the crosswalks, let them know where they're located. Week after week, I have seen drivers driving 30 to 40 plus miles per hour in a 20-mile-per-hour zone when the lights are flashing that it should be 20 miles per hour. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
I'm Kirk Gordon, and I'm here representing the Port of South Whidbey. Wanted to have one more discussion. Well, this isn't really going to be a discussion. It'll be me talking, but regarding the feasibility study we're doing for workforce housing at the fairgrounds, and the fact that your property line and ours has a common boundary. When we were here, I don't know, last November, we thought at that time that we possibly had encroachment onto school property, which we've since found out we don't, and I think you are all aware of that. We found out through a couple of conversations, I think here at these meetings, that there was a bit more of an interest from maybe even you all of the future of potential housing in that area. And we were very much interested in doing a feasibility study on our property and into the alleyway. And Island County, when they were more flush with housing funding, agreed to fund our feasibility and figure out whether it's practical for us to build workforce housing on our current food booth facility. As we got talking and realized the boundary lines and the setbacks, there appeared to be some interest from some of you, and maybe at least addressing the concept of some kind of workforce housing, or maybe just affordable housing on your side. The difference with the Port of South Whidbey is we can't address anything other than workforce housing. We're by statute, the only things we can be involved in have to address economic development. So we can't propose or fund or even act in affordable housing or homelessness, but we can, and because it is becoming apparent that workforce housing, or the lack thereof, is having a detrimental effect on local economic vitality, is the term that I kind of like to use. So this was we got kind of a two-part grant from Island County. The Island County Commissioners gave us $150,000 for this feasibility study. And then there's going to be a future grant after we get through with that. And the last time we were at a meeting here, there was a verbal nod to us including, say, 60 feet of your southern boundary property. So we went, that meant that we would have a change of scope in the grant that we got for this feasibility. So we went back to the Island County Commissioners and let them know that we had talked to you, and that, you know, we wanted to include a small part of your property along the boundary in the feasibility study. They understood, but were requiring that you all send a letter that stated that you were fine with us doing this feasibility study on your property. That's literally what it came down to. Our executive director has sent a couple of memos. I think you've received them. If you decide that you would like, at the expense of Island County and the work of the Port of South Whidbey, if you'd like to be included in that feasibility. And by feasibility, we're talking about, you know, there are sewer lines in the alley there. There's water lines. We have to address property lines. The feasibility goes as far as looking into the rezoning of the property, because they're both our property and your property are both public use properties, and that's going to require a change in Langley zoning. So we kind of started that process. Once we got a sense that you might want to be involved, or at least allow us to study part of your property, we stopped the process. So if you still open to be included in this feasibility study, I would encourage you to just send a letter. The specifics are in, I believe, in the notes that Angie sent to you. And if not, well, I think we all will understand. But the last thing, I think the last time I looked, Langley alone is supposed to have a couple hundred of housing units that are in the workforce down and not including affordable housing or homeless housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for sharing your the Board Commission's perspective on that. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kurt Holting, and I'm just here to express my appreciation for the resolution on the Climate Committee and encourage you to vote for that. I'm not exactly sure how the process is working, but you know, just reading in the paper there was going to be a vote on that, and I'm really proud of the students for what they've done with that, and agree with them. So I hope you'll honor that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your opinion on the matter.
I got one more event. Sped Ed went to iFly and it was amazing. Sped Ed department. We're hoping we'll get that grant next year. Just a little side note. So I wanted to follow up with my comment from last meeting. Won't use that term because apparently it was offensive. Was not intended to be. The observation I made was there was 3 entities. There was superintendent, the school board, and a group of kiddos. And none of them knew what the other person had done, said, accomplished, talked about, wanted. So it was just complete lack of communication, which is why I use that reference, 3 different people just kind of doing their own thing and not communicating. To follow up on something that was said, though, the difference between discussion and direction. So just for kicks and giggles, I went and listened to the recording, and nowhere did I hear, Joe, could you do ABC? We would like Joe to do this. We give Joe direction. It was more of a discussion. So I just wanted to clarify that. And it also kind of brings up the issue we had with the banner. You probably remember the banner. And then there was, you know, it was student-led, and then find out it wasn't student-led. And there was public records request that we had to do. So I feel a little deja vu. So that's why I brought up that concern. Another thing that was disappointing was your response was very immediately defensive. This was an observation. It was a public comment. And you were very quick to just defend the actions. And it just completely shuts down communication when you do that. You could say, I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to understand why you see it that way. And you could engage in conversation instead of shutting down conversation. If you remember the communication specialist that came, she said, you are showing people how you want them to communicate with you. I really encourage you again to go back and listen to her. She had a lot of good points. As far as one of the questions that was brought up was committees. I reached out to Christy. I said, Christy, what is their active community committees? There used to be a Sped Ed. I know there's one for the upcoming, the bond and such for how we use that money. But I heard a curriculum committee. And so I asked her, is that actual active? And she said, no. So I would love to see that happen because I'd like that you guys were encouraging people to be part of discussion, come to the bond committee, come to the curriculum committee, because that's where the public can get involved. I mean, you just shut down communication. It would be great if you offered more opportunities for the community to get involved so they can kind of be part of the process. That's the concept of having community involved in the school district. I think those are the main things, but the biggest thing, walk away. You are teaching people how you want to communicate. I really, really encourage you before you just respond abruptly and aggressively, as I've said at many meetings, pause and let it be a teachable moment and engage the community instead of shutting down conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your comments. Okay, that's everyone that we have in person. I've got 2 comments here from Zoom. The first is Candace Jordan Langley. I'm in favor of the proposals of the USL climate resolution. Thank you for sharing that opinion on that. Lori Johnson Langley. Saturday, April 26th is a safety and wellness fair that includes family fun activities, exhibitors, and prescription medication safe disposal opportunity. Bring your prescription medication, learn about safe storage options, and have some fun with face painting and fire trucks. The event is hosted by the Southerby Cares Coalition. Thank you for sharing the details on that event, Ms. Johnson. And that is all of the comments we have here in person and on Zoom. So we will move on from public comments to new business. The first item there is Memorandum 2425-30, approval of resolution 693, Climate Policy Committee. This is what we've been discussing for about a month now. And so is there any other comments or discussion to be had on this?
I just want to say how impressed I am with both student and community engagement around this topic. It's been wonderful to see stronger attendance at our meetings, and I'm really grateful for any opportunity to learn together how best to serve our students' needs. And I'm proud of the work that our community and this board and these administrators and students and teachers have done together.
I agree completely with that. Thank you. Yeah.
Like with that, I think this resolution has really shown like the power of our workshop format. Being able to have students and community come in and share like input on it and talk about it was really powerful in like creating this resolution. So I think that's really awesome.
I agree completely. And I'm pondering, perhaps this might be the topic of a WASDA presentation, actually, about the power of the workshop. Because you know me, I'm always going to evangelize the workshop format at WASDA. I'd just like to note that this resolution, if approved, will empower and direct our superintendent to create this committee to get the work done. And you've gotten a jump on timelines and planning, and I very much appreciate that, working ahead of the direction so that we can hit the ground running and get going.
Yeah, I just wanted to put a finer point on it. Attached to the agenda is what is essentially the procedure accompanying this resolution that puts into a lot of detail at the direction of the board how the committee will be formed and what its charter and goals are. So I appreciate that detail.
And I thought if the resolution were to be approved tonight, that we could go through it to make sure that the understanding and direction given by the resolution to the superintendent to develop this committee outline is actually what your intention is.
I also just want to, again, encourage people who have come forward saying that this was a very high priority for them. And I heard people saying that they were concerned about the timeline for this. I would encourage people to be part of the bond committee and Principal Phillips or the climate committee, but also to stay informed. I know where I'm going with this, to stay informed of the bond committee, because there are places that voices would be welcomed in the consideration of things that we're doing. And Principal Phillips, correct me if I'm wrong, but the curriculum adoption that's happening right now is the science curriculum. And there is an opportunity for people to view the materials that are being considered, correct?
For science, we're at the stage of looking at units of it, not a full adoption at this time.
Okay, but will the public have opportunity to view the materials?
If we, through some other bigger picture conversations, decide we want to move forward with the full adoption of it, then yes.
Okay, so I would encourage the people who have voiced wanting to see conversations about our climate in student curriculum to keep an eye out for that. It is not a formal committee, but it is an opportunity where you can see and give feedback on the materials that are being used, and that's an excellent venue. So yes, we are moving forward with this direction if it passes tonight, but there are also plenty of other opportunities for student voices to be involved and for community voices to be involved around that.
Dr. Moshe, did you want to work through take us through the
Yes, please.
procedure that goes alongside this?
Yes, and I just want to thank the board for understanding that when the board speaks, the superintendent then puts things into action. It is the superintendent's job to do that. So I put together a draft for the Climate Action Committee. I set up some guiding principles that I believe are in line with the guiding principles that the district is operating on: equity and inclusion, making sure that we certainly are using scientific literacy and education, sustainability and resilience, long-term environmental sustainability. The practicality piece, and we talked about that at the meeting, understanding that we want to move forward with approaches to our climate action that are also feasible, cost-effective, and scalable. And what I mean by that is, for example, as we purchase HVAC units for the high school that are going to go on the roof, that we do it with that, with climate in mind, with clean buildings in mind, which is a mandate from the state, but we can go beyond the mandate, certainly, but to what degree? Because it has to also be cost effective. Certainly collaboration and student-centered action. That is also about behavior, right? Helping students understand how all of our behavior impacts and how to change behavior of our colleagues, right? So if we're talking about in school changing of behavior around things that may not be the most essential parts of saving the, of protecting the climate, but still essential in our behavior. Can we recycle? Can we do simple things like what they do at Climate Pledge Arena? They actually have pictures on the different receptacles, so you know which thing goes in what. It's not just by the words, but by the pictures of. So things like that, changing behavior. So committee responsibilities. Develop and implement a district-wide sustainability strategy and engage stakeholders in carrying out these strategies. And you can read the rest of them there. And I also looked at providing a semi-annual update on progress. With that to begin, I actually had that in the memo. I have an older one in front of me, but Christy has a newer one up there. With the first report out in January 2026, which gives enough time for the committee to get underway. It accounts for the fact that there's a summer break in there and a new superintendent onboarding. But then it would be semi-annually after that. The committee formation, we encourage people to apply to be on the committee, but this is a working committee that also needs to be small enough to be able to get work done. So 10 or 12 people and not 30 people. So there will be 2 co-chairs. Scott Peacock and Kristen Coda will co-chair together. Scott being director of operations for the district. So he has the physical house and also past experience of leading groups of like this from his past life. And Kristen, who is the curriculum side of the world and will have an administrative internship going into next year. So those 2 will co-chair. And we also have been in touch with 2 different companies that can do the assessment around how we're doing, what we're doing well, what we can do in the short term, and then help us with the long term, especially around the bond and levy implementation. So those are the big ticket items with the timelines laid out. For the committee formation, it's between now and 6 months from now. So I think that can get underway before the school year ends. We can get that committee selected, at least have a couple of meetings and talk about what's the charge of the committee, how do you report back to the superintendent and the board, those kinds of things. And then all of the other items, curriculum, instruction, operations, are all listed there. And the initial work over the next 12 months and then ongoing from there. But within the first 6 months, committee selection meetings and getting boots on the ground to get the evaluation done. So that's what I propose for the board to consider as the implementation of its resolution, and welcome any feedback.
Exciting. I love how robust your approach already seems, and I think that you've put a lot of thought into answering the needs of the community and the climate.
+1, I think this is really well thought out. The charter is very clear. The timeline seems aggressive yet doable. And really the only opportunity I could see for improvement here, I see there's accountability in the form of ongoing progress metrics. It would just be to specify that those need to be set in our goal setting best practices as SMART goals or objectives and key results.
Yeah, and the only thing, I think that that's a fantastic addition. The only thing I noticed was just making sure that they know that if they want to report more than semi-annually, I would be open to that if they have things to report, just so that they know that it's at least semi-annually.
Certainly, anything at any point that would have a financial impact, they'll have to come back to the board with. But certainly twice a year is well, especially as they get started, just to be able to come back to the board with updates of here's what we're working on and how we're doing. And they may choose to come back before January, but I know how school years go, and so it may take a little while to, if we can get geared up this spring with the assessment, then they'll be well on their way. So that's what we're working on. But should the board select to go in this direction, I want to thank Scott and Kristen now for taking on the initiative. They both have an interest in it, and I think will do a good job leading the charge and making sure that it's that everybody's included.
I have just one more comment, just food for thought, and really maybe this is for Scott and Kristen. There's the approach that Washington State is taking, which is really dividing climate into climate resiliency on the one hand, and then greenhouse gas emissions reduction on the other hand, where they're related but two separate parts of mounting a climate response. And then within the world of climate resiliency, there's climate mitigation, trying to soften the blow of change. And then there's climate adaptation, trying to become a community that can protect itself and each other through change. And so as this committee gets underway, I hope that they can start to think through the lenses of climate resiliency, climate greenhouse gas reduction, climate adaptation, and climate mitigation. Thank you.
I'd like to reach out to our student representatives, just if you have anything to add here, since students have been a large part of getting this to this point. I'd like to open up specifically, call you into the conversation if you have anything to add.
I don't know. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I think it looks really good. I'm really satisfied with this resolution, and I'm glad our board is taking action on that.
Okay. Is there any more discussion or debate to be had on this item? Okay. Then could I get student advisory votes on Memorandum 2425-30?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving Memorandum 2425-30, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum passes. Thank you. Memorandum 2425-31, approval of Resolution 694, 180 days school year waiver application. I'll pass it over to Dr. Moshe.
Thank you. So this year we had some storm-related closures, 3 particular days where we closed. And like last year, our teachers work 184 days. Our students attend 180 days. There is a caveat that allows us to reduce the number of student days in lieu of some teacher conference days, which is what I'm asking the state to allow. So what that would do is allow the students to attend 178 days, though they will get all the required hours in. Teachers will still work 184 days, but the bottom line would be that June 13th, which is a Friday, and June 16th, which is a Monday, would not be student attendance days. They would be teacher and staff work days, but it would allow the students to stop school when it was anticipated they would stop school in September, rather than try and extend. If we don't get both and only get one, it may be reasonable to come to school Friday, but I'm pretty sure our attendance the following Monday might be light. So I'm hoping that the state approves the waiver. There's no guarantee, but the first step is for the board to say yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I expect that that Monday would be a student-free day anyhow, whether the waiver was accepted or not,
Perhaps.
simply due
But-
to lack of attendance.
Right, that's
Yeah.
right. And, you know, let's be above board about it.
Yes,
rather than-
absolutely. Any comments or questions on this item?
Just a quick question, and pardon my poor memory. This is a similar waiver to last year?
Exactly. If those snow days that we had were during a declared emergency that the governor would declare, that's a different process where you can get those days waived. Because that's not the case. We had a power outage and then 2 different snow events that were not state declared emergencies. The way we can still do this is through waiving, not really waiving anything. It's saying that we had 2 teacher conference days. It's getting the state to acknowledge them as part of the 180 days, as opposed to the additional, again, these folks work 184 days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And since it's the same waiver as last year, maybe to save us some deliberation time, is there anything new that's different from last year
No.
that would cause additional risk or consideration this
No,
year?
it's basically the same application.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Could we get student advisory votes on memorandum 2425-31?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 2425-31, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum passes. Memorandum 2425-32, approval of the purchase of a 3rd diesel lift bus. Dr. Moshe.
Thank you. So this is a 30-passenger bus that would actually allow for potentially 3 wheelchairs on that bus. It also can do double duty as small group bus for 30 passengers off to a sporting event or something like that. As you know, we do bus purchases on a regular basis and they amortize over time. So if we don't actually continue to replace our fleet, eventually there wouldn't be funding coming in to replace our fleet. So this comes from the Transportation Department through Scott Peacock as the recommendation, and Paul Field concurs that the money is there in the Vehicle Purchase Fund. So it's on your list for consideration.
Any comments, questions, or discussion?
I would assume that there are constraints on our electric vehicles that would make it impractical for this purchase to be an electric vehicle, and that the diesel technology will still be appropriate for us through the lifespan of this vehicle?
Yes, this is a vehicle that we anticipate not only for short trips around the district, but for longer trips. So having the diesel capacity at this time is important. We do have 2 electric buses, and certainly we'll consider more for the fleet as the technology for electric buses grows. But for right now, diesel is our recommendation.
Great, thank you. Had the proposal been the opposite, to add another electric bus, I would ask if it had sufficient range for its needs, and I'm anticipating that the answer to that might have been no, so thank you.
I just wanted to confirm that this will not set our normal replacement schedule off in any way.
No, it's part of our normal replacement schedule. It's just recommended that this be the type of bus that we purchase. And right now, the buses we have that accommodate wheelchairs accommodate one. And so we have more than one student in a wheelchair and oftentimes have to make 2 runs. So this will help us in that regard because they happen to live near each other. And so it's, rather than go back and forth, we could put students, more than one student on the bus. In addition, the wheelchair seats can be put in place of the wheelchair. So if a group was going off and no one needed that accommodation, we would have more seats on the bus.
Thank you for the very complete proposal. I appreciate it very much, Mr. Peacock. Any other comments, questions, discussion? Okay, student representatives, your advisory votes, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving Memorandum 2425-32, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has passed. Memorandum 2425-33, approval of the playground equipment purchase for elementary. Dr. Moshe.
Thank you. So the board heard at the workshop last month that we will be purchasing this playground equipment on our own, but it will be installed by our contractor. It actually speeds the process along. The equipment is on the state bidding process, so we were able to go directly, purchase it directly. The constraints on our contractor are that they would have to go out and rebid. So this speeds the process along. Essentially, we get as good a price or better, and the equipment will be here in July for installation in August for opening of school in September. So it's pretty exciting to be able to get this because we originally thought it would be October, November before we'd be able to open the playground. So, and the April 17th date where we all come together for groundbreaking, you will actually be that wooden structure that's out behind this building is it's at the end of its life, and so that will be part of this ritual of how we break ground.
Do we
so that
have
we can install this.
Do we have gold hatchets to take it apart?
You don't.
No.
There was going to be a gold
Unsafe.
chainsaws,
Unsafe.
but we decided not to do that. Nope. You will have hard hats and golden shovels, and actually, it'll be the students that we have.
Do the digging.
Yes, and put on the
Hard hats.
and the whole show.
Yeah.
The board will be able to also thank the community, but really the students are going to take the lead.
Excellent. For those following along at home, you can see in this document images of a great deal of the play structures, including the replacement for that wooden space, and then some of the larger dome and some of the sideline pieces as well.
And again, I want to take a second and thank Paul Field for the innovation on getting this to happen sooner rather than later.
I'm very excited that my daughter will be able to play on it come this fall.
This dome that you're looking at is versatile, can be added to and changed. So yeah, folks are pretty excited about it. And that was a committee led by or co-chaired by Kristen Coda doing a playground committee at the elementary. And so there were a lot of folks involved in selection and students were involved. So this is after a whole series of activities to get to this point.
I just appreciate the thought that has gone into selecting equipment that will work for students of all mobility levels and concerns. I'm really excited about the carousel and just wanted to note that it appears that I'm assuming it's flat because it
Yes.
has multi-mobility
And
levels that can be.
That was a huge part of the conversation was we didn't want to be ADA compliant with our playground. We
Yeah.
wanted to be inclusive
Yeah.
and make sure that students of all abilities could access most all of the equipment.
Yeah. So I really appreciate it because I know this has been a conversation for Dr. Joe and I for a number of years on the board that has come up, and it's really cool to see it come to life.
Andrew, you're correct. That's a zero entry carousel. So
Yeah.
they can roll a wheelchair right up onto it, and then it's controlled at how fast it can spin. So it won't fling kids off, but it's zero entry to get on there.
Well, perhaps we can modify that one thing.
For the Zoom audience, you want to repeat what that one thing was? I don't know that Mr. Field was
Oh.
using the mic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
it controls how fast it spins. So it's braking, so it won't, you can't zip it up super fast and send kids flying off it. But it is a zero entry that you can roll right into it if there's a student in a wheelchair to get onto that play structure.
Thank you.
Or someone with a boot or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. Any comments or questions on this?
Of course, this comes down to when I'm in high school.
I know, right? Well, if you're doing big buddy activities down here, you never know.
You could also come back and sub as a para, and you can play on it all you want.
Or you may find yourself raising children or nieces and nephews in this community decades from now, and you may find yourself playing there with your next generation pupils someday.
I actually had the opportunity to see the old structure, and while I was staring at it, aghast at how unsafe and old it is, and just being so thankful that our community voted to give us the resources to replace it, a young student came up to me and informed me that not only is it unsafe due to its structural integrity, it's also the home of wasps. And she had been stung multiple times by the wasps that live in that structure. So we sometimes think of these infrastructure projects as being esoteric, but they're literally improving the
And just to be
safety and
clear,
well-being of students.
They're not using it. Right.
Yeah, yes, it was roped off and
Yes.
condemned. Yes, yes.
Okay. Could we please have student advisory votes on memorandum 2425-33?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 2425-33, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum passes. Our last item of new business for the evening, memorandum 2425-34, approval of the South Whitby High School turntables renovation with BBM Railway Solutions. Dr. Moshe.
So this was an excellent introduction for Mr. Peacock when he arrived last year. The turntable rooms, 107 and 108, were put in place in the early 90s. And for those of us who were around in the early 90s, that's a long time ago now. And these turntables still work, but they're proprietary in that this BBM Railway, this company from Connecticut, put them in back when they were installed, and they're still the only ones who can replace and repair these things. So we had to fly the individual in, and that will happen again. And they have to replace, and it's in there, Scott put it in there, but basically all the gears and what's that funky word? The astragals. That's the thing that makes it stop if somebody gets caught in it. So,
Yes, let's replace those.
yeah, so that'll be done this summer, I believe, right?
We're hoping so, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't worked out the schedule yet, but yeah.
So this one is, this is an important one for us to get underway. It's levy funds that will be covering that expense. And just to go back to the playground is bond expense. This is levy expense. And the bus purchase is funds only to be used for purchasing buses. So none of these funds can be used for other than these kinds of things.
So wait, this one is levy though.
This is levy. That's
Okay.
correct.
But levy, it's the levy that can only be used on
Capital
Okay.
projects.
Yay, school finance rules. I find this fascinating that there's one company in Connecticut or New England somewhere that can do this, and I'm very glad that they're still in business.
And it's a railway company.
And it's a railway company.
And so we can't even begin to imagine why they did this back when they did it. But here we are.
So,
And those rooms are used, and the turntable function in them is something we need.
so when was the last time, do you know, I didn't ask this ahead of time, so if no one knows, I understand.
last
but the last
time, I don't think
made
we
this
know.
update?
I don't
No.
think we know.
The last time when?
They were updated.
Yeah, or
Just
repaired.
the last time they were updated a little bit was in August when we
Right,
had a
when we
technician
found
come
out.
out and did some repair. And before that, I don't know.
Okay.
But it's interesting though, the person who I'm working with on this to put this together is the guy who was the project manager who installed them back in the early 90s. So he remembers this project
Wow.
actually.
Uh,
And
let's make sure we figure out.
A different thing for the future.
Yeah, well, and also what happens next time these need to be replaced, and the person who was the
Right.
project manager in the early 90s and is still working there isn't working there anymore.
right.
Yeah,
And I did want to just say, the concern about the cost was ever present here as we were talking about this. And so one of the things I just wanted to say is, when looking into this, I really worked at trying to find if there was someone else who could do this work for perhaps less cost. And to go back to what Dr. Moshe said, there was this very proprietary, and I kind of chased around. I got to one other company who maybe could have done it, but they haven't done these in 30 years either. So here we were back to BBM Railway Solutions. So thank you.
And I was in high school when those got put in, along with a couple other folks in this room. And I still walk into them and I'm like, wow, these new rooms are so cool.
any other comments or questions? Thank you very much for the hard work chasing down those leads and getting this ready for us. Student representatives, can we have advisory votes on memorandum 2425-34?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving memorandum 2425-34, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum is approved. Thank you very much. That's the end of our new business. We'll move on to reports. And Mr. Field with the financial and enrollment report.
So we'll start with our enrollment report. So this is our enrollment as of the beginning of March. The students are sticking with us from the beginning of the year. It's been great to have the additional enrollment compared to budget. So we're still average FTE 48, almost 49 students over our budgeted number, slightly under TK. We have 16 in TK now, so it's up. Again, this is the FTE for the year, so we had a little dip at 14, but in accepting kids back into that as we've moved through the year. And then there's our SPED and VOC number and an increase in our bilingual students also this year. So this is that information in a bar or a line graph. We're the green line currently. We're closing in on the 22-23 number. So we may actually surpass that because 22-23, we started to have a drop off in the last few months, and our green line keeps ever inching up year over year. So it's a good sign for the current year. Again, back to the beginning of the year, those students that joined us in September have stuck around. Same information in a bar graph, just a different presentation month over month. And this is our cohort by grade. Again, you can see that sixth grade, fourth, fifth, sixth grade band is where we picked up most of the students year over year. So when you're looking at the graph, you chase the students upward and diagonally. And you can see our third grade students in 23-24 were 63, and in 24-25 at 77. So we picked up a lot of students in that fourth, fifth, sixth grade band. Fingers crossed we see them continue on into next year. Financial report, we're halfway through the year and roughly less than half of our revenue expenditures, so kind of right on pace with our annual expenditures. Not all of our expenditures are consumed ratably, specifically MSOCs and things typically get a lot more at the beginning of the year purchases and tapers off. And this is with encumbrances. So that's dollars that we have promised to spend either via salary or open POs. And so with all in, we're at 96.4% of our budget. That number sits about in the mid 90s all year long as we move from encumbrances to dollars out the door. Slightly over with our payroll and encumbrance, and that'll get adjusted as we move through the year. But we have added some staff with the additional students that we've had to help accommodate that and help keep us with K-3 compliance. This is just showing our revenue and expenditures compared to prior year. The current year is the dark green, dark red line. Our October, November is higher than before, but then we're kind of dropping right back in line with historical averages for those two lines. Nothing really out of the ordinary in the current period for February. And this is just the breakout by classification of certificated, classified, and employee benefits. Again, lining up with historical month over month. This is our fund balance for again, the green line for 23-24, still sitting at the 20% mark, which is a very positive place to be compared to other districts in the state. And again, this is bumping around like we would with a continued trend of prior periods. We'll get into April and it'll shoot back up again as we get our April collection on the levy.
Just seeing the bottom of the graph be 18% is pretty extraordinary for school districts in Washington.
Yeah, exactly. This is the statutory required report, the budget status report. And there's nothing extraordinary or to report for the month of February. It's pretty much been business as usual as we're hitting our stride to the end of the year. Our other funds, I've reached out to our ASB treasurer and Miss Johnson in the ASB office to see if they can come back before the end of the year to help articulate what they've done through the year. And then again, as I'm doing the budget, as we get into June, to help present the ASB budget. So we'll try to get that on the schedule and fit them into this presentation in some part, and likely May, to give them time to build up a presentation to help participate. So with that, are there any questions?
Not a question, Mr. Field, but I know you called out the growth in the grade bands for 3rd and 4th grade from last year to this year, but I'm also looking at the class size growth, so moving diagonally, and it looks like from kindergarten through 5th grade, we're essentially adding about 10 students to each grade level across the elementary, which I think is really cool. So for example, kindergarten last year was at 61.9 students, and that same cohort this year is at 74.59. So that's kind of true across the board.
I would love to get some anecdotal evidence at some point about why folks are coming into the district, some of the new families at the end of the year, but I know that's adding into an already busy time, particularly with the superintendent handoff in there. But I'd like to see if we can determine see if we can get a suspicion on whether this is a blip or a continuing pattern. But I know that takes time, energy, and years of data to have longitudinal data.
The K specifically, when you run down that list, you can see that the K to 1, there is always that kind of a jump up, or historically for the last 3 years. It's when you start moving farther into that 3, 4, 5 grade bands where we picked up a bunch of our students. And when you look at our current 12th graders, it appears that we had less 12th graders run off, I'm not gonna say wrong, go to running start than we've had in the past. So we're holding more 12th graders than we have in the past.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Field. We move on to the superintendent report. Dr. Moshe.
Thank you. Our student board members didn't mention the fact that spring break is coming up, and so I'll take the opportunity to remind us all that next week is a break week. I have been working with Dr. Clifford on orientation. She's been in the district. She'll be in the district 2 days the week back from break, and it'll get more and more frequent. Construction update. So next business meeting, You'll get an update on the superintendent's goals for this year, and part of that is logistics and levy and bond. So I have a construction timeline update for bond work, and Scott Peacock has prepared all of the things that have been done with the levy dollars over the past year and what the plans are going forward. So you'll see both of those as part of the goals update. We did get permits, which was surprising. So we have some permits for the work. So you will start to see the envelope on the high school this summer. They plan to land sometime early June to start staging, and then June 16th, they plan to start working. That is a 2-year project. So that will break ground for the playground, and you will start to finally see some of the bond work in action that is visible. I don't have all of the details on all of our course signups yet, but it looks like we have 40 students signed up for theater, which is very exciting. 43. So we also have a full, and you've seen them come in over time on your personnel report, but we have many of our folks retiring this year. So we have it's exciting time to do recruiting. And replacing Chris Harshman is going to be like replacing the superintendent. They're going to have a big committee, and it'll involve students and staff and community members. And we'll probably have finalists come to the district for some time, because most of our applicants are from all over this country. And so it's a good problem to have. So that will be going on. Go ahead.
I think it says quite a lot about the band program that has been built by Mr. Harshman and his predecessors,
Right.
that we have national interest in that position.
It's an award-winning band. It also is much like the superintendent role in a district our size. It's a lot of things. So the person has to be well able to conduct and play instruments and lead a pep band and take kids to concerts and competitions. So it's a big job. So it takes quite a bit of effort. But there are several of those kinds of positions coming open. So there'll be some recruiting. And Paul is still trying to get the auditors out of the district and get to the budget in the district, and dealing with all of the bond finances. So we've got very busy folks doing lots of work. So I appreciate all the work they're doing as we transition and get ready for a change in leadership. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. We move on to board comments and reports.
As I alluded to earlier, I had the opportunity to visit the elementary school since our last meeting, and as always, I'm constantly amazed by the quality teaching I'm seeing, and just the general positive spirit in the school. I learn new things about new educational methods that are state of the art on using restorative circles in a way that's fun for the younger grades and age appropriate. So to them, it seems like a game, but you can tell that they're using it to build skills and interpersonal skills, and helping students with math get over the I'm not good at math thing, so they can realize that they are good at math. So it was really really positive visit.
I want to follow that up with a shout out to our food service workers in the cafeteria. I just observe them on a regular basis, just knowing every student who walks into that cafeteria. When I'm, dropping my own child off, they're coming into the building and saying hello to everybody. And I think that just continues to embody that culture of care, of knowing every student by name. Mr. Patton, help me out with it. It's name, strength, and need, right? Yes. And I think it's really a testament to the building leadership when And that is evident across multiple departments and multiple facets of ways that we support students.
Yeah. And my daughter consistently asking me, can I have school lunch today? Yes. Which I'm happy not to come up with a entree for lunch.
I would like to thank the district for sending a few of us to the Network for EdWork conference last Saturday. I felt inspired and informed and educated by the day. I really enjoyed the perspectives of panelists and speakers and other community members who participated. The number of classroom teachers that I got to learn with was a pleasant surprise, and I felt like the hands-on experience as educators really brought more texture to my learning. So grateful for their perspectives. I also thought the keynote presentation was just profoundly moving. It was a collaborative keynote delivered by two people about just the contextualizing of education in community and how education can emerge from community through community values and for generations ahead and from and held by generations behind. So it was very moving, and I think we all, I should speak for myself, I learned a lot. Thank you.
I did as well. Yes. I just wanted to note, since it came up here, that this board has expressed an willingness to allow feasibility studies to occur, but please, anyone correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but no particular interest to sell or lease community center land at this time. Just to be very clear with what this board has discussed in the past. I just wanted to make sure that that was out there and stated again to make sure that there's no misunderstandings. Director Greenherron and Student Representative McKnight and I will be going down to speak with our representatives and senator this upcoming week on spring break. So thank you very much for coming in the middle of spring break to do that. One of the big items that we will be pushing on is the continuance of our TK program because it has been such a success here. The preliminary, it sounds like it will be at least funded through this year, which was not necessarily going to happen, but it looks like it will be through the end of the year. Hopefully we can keep pushing them to make sure it continues to be funded going forward, because we know that it is very important to those students and families that they can get that on-ramp to kindergarten. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much. Good night. This meeting is adjourned.